from. Do you ever do stuff and you said you don't even know why you're doing it? It doesn't, you like intellectually you know it doesn't make sense, but you're still doing it, right? Well, here's what happens is there's a curve, and you might have heard of it before through Freud or something else. It's an iceberg model. And Freud came out with it and he said that, you know, the expression you might have heard is it's the tip of the iceberg, right? The tip of the iceberg is 10% of what we do. Excuse me, what we do. The why we do it is underneath the surface. So whenever, if you've ever seen a picture of an iceberg, you only see a little thing, but if the mass is so big below it, like it's like somebody's really deep, and we can't just go based on surface of what we see. So what happens up here, this is the what we do, and this is the why we do it. This is the behavior. This is the person that when you're out there and you are doing something that you know is not good for you, it doesn't feel good, Mary, but you're doing it because it's a behavior. The why you're doing it actually is the foundation that comes from motive does matter, okay? So it comes from motivation, comes from our beliefs, comes from our values, and it comes from our attitude. And a lot of times we know better. Like we intellectually know something we're doing isn't good for us, but we don't know how to stop it. And we might take a behavior. It could be getting stuck on Facebook. I've done that. Anybody else? I think we should have a thing called like Facebook Anonymous or Social Media Anonymous, like get these toys out of our hands, right? You're in the middle of this thing. I love it. I love when somebody's like in the middle of a conversation and they're having a conversation with somebody else. It's like, can you be present? Can we be here right now, right? Present here, be with me, you know? But honestly, we're growing up in a generation that has no connection. Like you ladies, you connected more than most of the world connects in a year you did in one afternoon here. Would you agree? Being present for people don't do that anymore. We're so distracted. But if you come down to why we're distracted, it's actually an expression where they say that we do things to feel better now. What did I just say? Feel better now. See, it's that immediate gratification. It's like looking at that cake and you say, I know it's not good for me, but Joanne, but it looks good. And I know if I have that cake, I'm going to feel better when? Now. And I'm going to have it, and then what we do is we justify why we should have it. You know, it's really not that unhealthy. Chocolate's good. It's a good antioxidant. Right? It's brain boosting too. Did you know that? Yeah, it is. I made that up because I want it. And then also it has eggs in it, so it's protein, right? So that's not so bad. It's protein in there. So protein, chocolate, antioxidants, that's pretty good, right? So we're going to actually justify to have that cake. But at the end of the day, it doesn't actually make you feel better now. It doesn't actually make you feel better. Actually, you feel worse usually after you have it. But because we're into immediate gratification, what most people don't realize is how our brain works. It works in 10-minute increments. You might know all the reasons why it's not, that cake isn't healthy for you, but then all of a sudden you get caught in a behavior and you find yourself eating it. Did anybody ever do that? Okay? Only 4 people? I have a lot of, okay, I'm just, really? So what happens is, how do you change this? How do you change that cycle? Well, we talked about a lot of the things, but motive does matter. Why you're doing it does matter. If you're doing something, it doesn't have to be cake, it can be spending. Who here spends to feel better? Do you know what happens with things? It's retail therapy. It's a whole nother therapy, sis, right? I had a client, oh, she's amazing. She's so funny. She says to me, she says to me, when she started the program, she says, this is cheap. My bracelet costs more than this. Another client turned around and she said, oh, that's nothing. She says, I have more furs and all these gifts, all these things I buy myself. She's like, that's so cheap. She has the nicest things of everything, but she was the most unhappy person I had met in a long time. But what happens is, I call it switching addictions. And it's not an addiction like we need help for, like in every addiction, but meaning we take something off the plate, we put something else on it. So if, for me, food was my thing for a while, and then when I stopped binging and purging and doing, I needed to do something else, but I started spending. So all of a sudden I'd spend to feel better because the food didn't make me feel better. Now the spending would, but then the buyer's remorse came in of, oh my God, I just threw all this money away. Or, Mary, I went through that too. Or I'd start dating more men because the more men who were interested in me made me okay. So I went through a lot. I won't put a number to it because I don't want my husband to ever know. So I went through a lot of men. And then when it wasn't men, it was something else. And then it actually became education. But that was actually the best addiction I ever chose, was personal development, because that's only helped me and hopefully helped you in being in this presence. But the idea is we always take something off the plate and put something back on. But motives matters. And why we do what we do is really just to feel better now. That's why willpower will never work. People go, oh, I just don't have good willpower. No, it has nothing to do with willpower. What you're doing is you're serving a need. You don't even know why. You know, I actually spend almost 3 weeks working on this with the women I work with, because I don't think any of us even understand, and why is never a question I like to ask. I don't ask why I do something. I ask, how do I stop doing it? Or how do I do something else? Because why will give me all the reasons to support a bad behavior.